So welcome. My name is Serena Sanborn. I'm the Education and Outreach Manager at Waterville Creates. And I'm here with Russ Cox. And Russ is a children's book illustrator and now a teacher at, what's the name of the school, Russ? It's
Maine Arts Academy.
Maine Arts Academy. So, which is pretty awesome. And he has about 100 students. So very exciting. So Russ, I'm going to have you just take it away, and I might be working in the background a little bit just to see if I can get the other folks on. It looks like the other teacher made it on. Yay. But I'm going to send emails to the other folks just to see if they'll retry. But I'll be here in the background if you need anything. And if anyone has questions or anything, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A. Thanks all.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. My name is Russ Cox. As Serena says, I write and illustrate children's books. I've worked on chapter books, picture books, and now I have ventured into graphic novels. I actually have 2 graphic novels out on submission, which means I have an agent who takes my story ideas and she tries to sell them to publishers. And I'm currently writing 2 other graphic novels. So graphic novels are the hot ticket right now, especially in publishing. So we're going to kind of dive right in. Make sure you have pencil and paper because I have some prompts for you along the way. I'm going to have you doing some writing and some sketching. So let's get started. All right, let's talk about graphic novels. Okay. So what is a graphic novel? It's a really good question. It is a format, not a genre. Some people think when they say graphic novel, they tie it in with like maybe a fairy tale or sci-fi. It's a format. Just like a picture book's a format, a chapter book's a format. And it's also a collection of images with a story that is in book form rather than a smaller comic periodical. That means if you go to a comic book store, like every month, there's always new editions come out. But a graphic novel usually takes years. And somebody, I can't remember the name, worked on a graphic novel for 7 years before it was published. And also, if you have any questions along the way, you just raise your hand and Serena will ask me the question. So don't feel like you have to wait till the very end to ask anything. All right. So here are some of my favorite graphic novels. You may recognize a few. Lightfall. This is one of those adventure tales between a girl and her creature friend. It's beautifully written. The illustrations are gorgeous, and I think the sequel just came out. So if you're really into graphic novels and you haven't seen this one, this is a beautiful graphic novel to read. All right, let's see here. Let's get to the next one. Through the Woods. This is really an interesting graphic novel. Just the way it's illustrated. It's very loosely rendered, some bright colors, a lot of dark backgrounds. Again, I think this was illustrated with watercolor. A lot of graphic novels are done with digital, but you do have a few that are done traditionally. Again, this is a great graphic novel. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. The gigantic beard that was evil. This one was done, I think it's all pencil, maybe some ink. It's kind of the theme is, I don't want to really tell you too much about it because I really think it's one of those you should read. There's not a lot of words to this one. It's mostly images and storytelling through the visuals, which you can see in the samples I have here. All right, there we go. This was our pack. This one came out, I believe, last year, and it was a big hit. I think it topped the bestseller list. Again, this was done traditionally, and I think some of the colors were done digitally. So it's kind of a combination. It's a great adventure story, very muted colors, not a lot of bright colors. I think the color palette is 1 or 2 colors throughout the whole book. But if you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend it. Three Shadows, I think this came out earlier this year. The color or the cover, a lot of muted colors. The whole inside of the book, the interior is all black and white. And I love the character design on this one. If you're writing down these book titles, you want me to slow down, just let me know. I tend to talk fast sometimes. This is Zoo Patrol Squad by my friend Brett Bean. He's worked on animated shows, a lot of graphic novels, and this is his first series that he wrote and illustrated. This is all done digitally. I believe he uses Photoshop or Procreate for his artwork. And another friend of mine, you probably know this one, Bird and Squirrel by James Burks. This was all done in Clip Studio, which I will show you later on towards the end of the presentation. I'll show you a few things in Clip Studio, but I think there's 7 or 8 Bird and Squirrel books, and he's just finishing up the last one in the series now. Again, just real simple characters, but great storytelling, great action and page turn. James actually has a background in animation as well. Trying to remember what he worked on, but it kind of slipped my mind. So, what are some of your favorite graphic novels? I want you to write down a few, because it's very important to kind of flip through books that you really like. Think of them as inspiration. So write down 3 or 4 graphic novels that you like right now. I'll give you a couple minutes.
Avatar: The Last Airbender was put into the chat.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Rings of Fire.
Oh, I don't know that one. I'm gonna have to write that down. All right.
Oh, The Bone from Mrs. Jones' Classroom. Tron. Mouse.
Mouse is good.
Wow, cool.
Rings of Fire. Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
So I'm going to show you my process when I write and create graphic novels. It's very involved. You may be surprised how much work it goes into it, but a lot of my friends who I talk to, the process is pretty similar. So where do my ideas come from? Now, the example I'm going to show you is the Maximus Walker story. I'm going to talk to you about how it originated and the different formats it went through. So here we go. So where do my ideas come from? Usually at 2 in the morning, I wake up with an idea. I have a little notebook next to on my nightstand that I'm always writing notes down. Because if I don't, I think, oh, I'll remember that in the morning. No, it's gone forever. Also, walking and driving, ideas pop in my head. I don't know why. Eating. Sometimes I'm eating something and an idea pop into my head. In the shower, that's very common. Also, watching movies or shows is big. Somebody could say something, or there's something in a scene that triggers a story idea. I listen to music. Music's my second passion. Just listen to some music, things pop in my head. Also listening to others, just conversations, you can pick up on little things. Dreams, that kind of ties in maybe to the 2 in the morning thing. I may have a dream. It's like, oh, that'd be a fun story. And then I write it down. And then sketchbooks. Sketchbooks is very important to me. It's where I kind of jot down it's like my visual journal. So I'm going to show you some samples. If you are really serious about your artwork, you should be drawing in your sketchbooks. Try to do it every day. I try to do it every day, or on scrap pieces of paper. I have paper all over the house, little drawings on it. And so I will tape it into a sketchbook or maybe redraw it to a sketchbook, but I'm always drawing. And now that I'm teaching at the Maine Arts Academy, I'm drawing every day on the dry erase board or doing demos and all kinds of stuff. So drawing is very important. So here's some samples. Oh, sorry. So where do your ideas come from? Just kind of jot down a couple things, or maybe that's not on my list, or you can put them in the chat. Where do you get your ideas for your stories and drawings?
So we have a couple in the chat. Walking around Waterville is one.
That's a good one.
Oh, this is a good one. Theme parks.
Oh,
That's fun.
that's a new one. I don't think I've ever heard that one.
Yeah, I
I
like
like
that. We have a student here who says they get ideas from books and movies.
Mhm.
Yeah, nice.
How about siblings
Yeah,
or family?
family.
Yeah,
I have
I have a lot of
great,
stories since I'm from Tennessee. So yeah.
yeah, oh, that's awesome. Music. Yep.
Yep.
I
Okay.
have to say I get them from dreams a lot too myself.
Yeah, it's a big one. But sometimes I don't know, I just wake up at 2 in the morning with an idea in my head. I don't know if I've dreamt it or it's just one of those things that was in the back of my mind for a while and just like, okay, you better write this down or it's gone. All right, let's go to the next one. So many of my ideas start in my sketchbooks. So I'm going to show you a few samples. These are just characters that pop in my head that I jot down in my sketchbook. Sometimes I'll have a theme like the owls on the right-hand side. I try to fill the whole page with just different versions of owls. Other times it's just various characters. I really like the little hairy monster feeding the mouse. Again, some of these are on scrap pieces of paper. I think the scarecrow playing the banjo is on one, and then the girl on the stilts.
Russ, we have a one in the chat that says getting ideas from watching nature. It's another great one.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, how many of you keep sketchbooks regularly? How many of you draw in them all the time? Okay. So Maximus started with this little drawing I did, and I really liked it. And I decided that, well, I'll render it, put some color into it. So this whole story started with this simple drawing. I had a different agent at the time, and they're like, "Oh, what's the story with this?" I'm like, "I really don't have a story. I just really like these characters." And they were like, "Well, there's definitely a story here, and you should sit down and write it," which I hear a lot from my sketches, like, "Oh, you should turn that into a story." So I guess there's stories in my sketches, but I don't realize it. So I kind of took this idea and then I started playing around with it. Sometimes I don't sit down and write the story right off the bat. I need to play around with the visuals to see if it's going to work. That's just kind of my process. So Max actually started out as a picture book. So these are storyboards. They use these in movies and animated shows as well, where I just kind of sketched out the whole story. I wrote down the dialogue underneath. And the more I looked at this, the more I realized like there's more to it than a picture book. So I turned it into a chapter book where I sat down and I spent a month writing the story, and then I was done with it. And then my current agent read it and said, "Well, this is good, but I think this is a graphic novel." So I wrote the story again, which happens with me quite a bit. So I actually put it away for a year. I think 2 years actually. And I didn't even look at it. I worked on some other story ideas, but it was always in the back of my head, which happens quite a bit with a lot of us. I think Dan Yacarino says he has 20 different stories going on at one time. Because if he hits a wall with one, he bounces to another one. Now, Dan writes a lot of picture books. But Dan Santat, who won the Caldecott, which is like winning the Oscar for illustrators, he's been working on his graphic novel for 4 years, but he also works on other picture books in the meantime. So it's always in the back of his head. So then I sit down, it's like, okay, I'm going to turn this to a graphic novel. So what this is a story arc. You have a beginning, a middle, and the end. And usually the middle part is where all the tension is. And then at the end, there's a resolution. So I sit down and I thought, well, is there enough here for a graphic novel? So I actually made this little diagram, which if you have a story in the back of your head, it's not a bad thing to do. Just to see if you have enough, I call it meat on the bones for a complete story. And then it's time to write a synopsis. Now, a synopsis is usually 2 to 3 sentences, kind of what the story's about. You kind of get to the meat or the root of the story. They also call it log lines or pitches. So if you're like an elevator pitch, like let's say if you're in an elevator with Steven Spielberg and you have a story idea and he goes, "Hey, do you have a story idea? Give me your pitch." It's usually 1 or 2 sentences to tell the whole story. But sometimes a synopsis, there's more to it. So this is my synopsis for Max. I actually wrote down a log line, which was a couple sentences, and then I expanded into this. So I'll give you a minute if you want to read this. So that original little drawing of the boy, the dog, and the octopus is now expanded into this. And the octopus now is called a cycloptopus, since it only has one eye. And that took me forever to come up with the name for it. And then it just kind of hit me. Actually, I think I was going for a walk and it hit me. It's like, oh, well, it makes sense. That's what you should call it. It's like cycloptopus. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write a 2 to 3 sentence synopsis of your story idea. And this is very difficult to do. So if you're struggling, it's okay. We all struggle with this one. So just give it a shot. Do the best you can.
Cool. And while folks are doing that, Russ, just so you know, we do have a few people who said they do sketchbooks. Zachary says he goes through about 1 sketchbook a month. And yeah, yeah, that's a great practice. And then Mrs. Jones has 2 students in her classroom who keep sketchbooks. So that's cool to know.
That is very cool. That's how you get better. It's all practice, practice, practice. I think everybody can draw. It's just a matter of whether you want to really sit down and do it, or it's just something you kind of dabble in. So let's talk about the characters. Okay. So you must know your characters. So one thing I like to do is I kind of interview my characters to kind of get their backstory, because each character you draw, there is a story there. And they're willing to tell you, you just have to sit down and listen. So this is the character sheet that I worked up that I use for my graphic novels, my picture books, anything I'm working on that I'm writing myself. And sometimes I use it for if I'm illustrating another book. So it's just real simple. You got your physical traits, personality traits, and maybe a background. And sometimes when you're writing, you're filling out this left side, you can start sketching on the right side. That's what I like to do. And I was trying to find my story or my interview for Max, and I couldn't find it. But what I can do, I can send this to Serena, and she can send it to all the classrooms if they would like the students would like to use it while they're working on their stories.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Russ. I can send it out to folks.
Okay. So here's some information, a little backstory about Max. So again, he's 10 to 11 years old. He's an adventurer. He's an inventor. He reacts without thinking. That's based on my son. I don't know where that E came from. Cannot remember the word or phrase he uses, but so he uses his own terminology. Then his sister, his nickname is Mags. I thought it'd be interesting if the sister was an adopted sibling, which can add a different dynamic to the story. Very smart, well-read, loves computers and technology. Mags is quiet and shy. Let's see, Davy Jones, I changed the dog to a cat. I just thought a cat in water just cracked me up, because cats really don't like water. Most of them don't. Davy Jones is a stray, always hungry. I kind of based that on Garfield, who always wanted lasagna. Of course, cats are very smart. And then the parents, I didn't give the parents' names because I wanted to focus on the main characters, Max, Mags, Davy, and then the Cycloptopus. So I just called them parents. Mom and dad are in the story. And then there's a little bit of background about where Max came from. And actually in the story, it's revealed towards the end that Max was also adopted from the same place.
And we have, I think, what might be a synopsis in the chat. I'm not sure. It's kind of great. They say, Emma, the baby, and the pint of ice cream. It makes you want more, right?
Yes. More story, more ice cream.
Yeah. And Zachary shares, an evil ruler wizard who hates humans, so they hide out in a secret colony. When his dog warriors find the colony, it gets destroyed. The humans rebuild the colony into a fort and start an army, so the wizard plans on unleashing his dragon father. Nice.
Wow. That one's really, really good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, I'm just gonna. So what I want you to do is interview your character. So I'm gonna bring this back up. So your main character, just think about it. Just try to answer a few of these questions. So I'll give you, 2 or 3 minutes to do this. And again, I'll send Serena this page, and then she can forward it to all the teachers.
Also, if anyone's interested, well, let's see, was this last spring that we did, or last winter, did another character workshop with you, which is available on YouTube. So when I send the link out to this recording, I'll also send the other one that we did with Russ, so you can do an even more in-depth character kind of exploration too. I know one of the things you suggested to Russ in your other workshop was with these characters, which I thought was great, was actually changing their gender and just like, what is that like? And changing, like, it was interesting, like how you play with your character can tell you more about it, about about them.
And then you have human characters, turn them into creatures or animals, and vice versa. So yeah, you can really learn a lot by just switching things around a bit. And you may go back to the original character, which is fine, but you may learn more about them when you do these type of exercises. There's the squeaky chair.
Oh yeah, I can hear it a little bit.
Okay, as long as it's not overbearing.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. All right, I'll give you another minute, and then we'll move along. I think naming the characters is probably the most fun thing to do. And I usually go with the first name that pops in my head, because I think there's a reason why that one just stands out. But I will go and try other names, but I always go back to the first one. So I'm going to show you some of my character sketches for Max. Okay, there we go. I may have to zoom back a little bit. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. Anyway, I was trying to just zoom out a little bit, but everything's kind of, there we go. That's better. Sometimes you nail the character on one sketch, other times it takes multiple sketches. Davy Jones, I just kept playing around with, trying different body types, head types. And then you see this one here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this is the one that kind of stood out to me. And also I'll ask feedback from my friends too. It's like, which one do you like? Why do you like it? And Max was originally going to be a monster, because that's how Max saw her, as, sometimes you look at your sibling, especially a younger one, as a little monster. So I kind of was stuck on this one. And let's see here. And then I started playing around with the ship, the rust bucket. The guppy is his little underwater submarine, and I like this one. And then there was a shark, because I love sharks. I had to put a shark in the underwater. This is Carl. I didn't have to. I like Carl right off the bat, so I didn't really have to play around with the sketches. And then then Max. Max was a little bit of a challenge to get where I wanted it. So I just kept playing around, trying different things. I really like the wonky hair. He almost has that Elvis type hairstyle now. And I think I combined some of these. Like I really like the hairstyle of this one, and then maybe the face of this one. And then I just modified. I made it a little older than the original idea. And this is Grandpa Buck, who I added later in the story. And I like that Grandpa Buck has these steampunk kind of glasses. I don't know what the flowers are at the bottom, but it's kind of funny. And then I kind of worked up the sketches a little bit and added some color, see if I liked it. And I didn't want a lot of bright colors for this one, except maybe for the guppy to get the contrast when it's underwater. And then these are some like the buildings and scenes that would be in the graphic novel. These are from my sketchbook. I was just trying to plot out. Max, he invents everything in his tree house, which is hollowed out. It goes down to a lair that's by the water. So that's what this is. So this is the original tree house, which his parents think, oh, it's just a regular tree house. But it has all kinds of pulleys, and it has an elevator that goes down into the middle. And then this is his laboratory. And then there's some of his vehicles that he invented. His parents actually work at an aquarium. So they're scientists. So I was just trying to design the aquarium. And then this is like the house, the Bright House where the kids live who are going to be adopted. I thought it'd be kind of like it's an old lighthouse that's more like a theme park. So now I just want you to do a couple sketches of your main character. And if you want to try, if it's a boy making it a girl or vice versa, that's great. If it's human, you want to make it an animal, try that, or vice versa. So I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to do this, just real quick, nothing really fancy or detailed. Just kind of play around with your character a little bit.
Oh, there is a question. When did you start drawing, Russ?
That's a really good question. Ever since I can remember, I kind of make a joke that I was born with pencil and paper in my hand, but my mother really hates that joke. No, as far as I can remember, I've always been drawing. I mean, I did kind of, I did play sports and stuff, but not a lot. I was happier inside listening to music and drawing something. That's how I spent most of my time. Even really little, like 2 or 3, I learned how to scrub walls and floors because I was drawing on them at an early age. So.
And Russ, did your parents draw? Did you have a person who you knew that drew? Or no? Wow, that's cool.
No.
That was just what you were always drawn to.
Yeah, that was my thing. I think I was 6 years old, and growing up in Tennessee, there was a little magazine from the town, and in the back you could submit drawings. Kids could submit drawings, and I did, and it was actually published. And I think that's what kind of put me on this course.
That's a great motivator.
That outline. So when I kind of do my sketches and I have my synopsis in place, I do something called an outline, which I really break down the story in an outline form. So I'm just going to kind of bring this over to the screen. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, maybe you can zoom in a little bit more. Might be a little hard to see, but
let me see here. Oops.
It will. Oh, that's a little better, I think. Yeah.
You can actually see that I take that synopsis and I really spend a lot of time on this step. For me, this is my whole guideline when I go into actually writing the story. And I can make changes here. You can see there's some things highlighted that probably notes between my agent and I. Let's see. I was actually using my wife's computer at one point, so that's why it has her name here. So yeah, I really break it down into what's going on in the scenes, in the panels. Not so much the panels, that's the next step, sorry. But more just like each chapter, this is what's going to happen. So this happens, and this happens, and then when this happens, then there's a little, like chapter 2, B, Max and Davy is gobbling down their breakfast, and then Max is slowly eating her food, enjoying a home-cooked meal. Just these little things like that help me really develop the story in my head. And honestly, this is probably the hardest and most time-consuming part. This is where I really come up with like names of maybe less important characters, and I named the ship the Rust Bucket here. Also, there's typos. I'm horrible. My agent's great. She'll usually like, oh, you have a typo here. There's one here. I'll just kind of scroll through this real quick. Let's see, what's the note here?
So Ms. Pelletier's class has to take off, unfortunately, but we're going to keep going. And thanks for attending. We will record this, and then you can see some of the ending parts, so you guys can continue.
Okay. Thanks for joining me. This is great. So I don't want to bore you too much with this, but again, to me, this is the most important part when developing a graphic novel. All right, I'm gonna remove that now. Okay, so usually when I have the outline done, then it's time for the manuscript. And yes, it does look like a movie manuscript. So I'm going to bring this over here. Okay. And I'll zoom in so you can see this. So for this, I am using Apple's Pages. You can use Microsoft Word. There's also an app I just downloaded over the summer called Highland 2, which saves a lot of time as far as the formatting, where everything's bold, you're indenting, you know, you have dialogue set up. So I'll just go through this. So this is where I just pick a chapter. I didn't write the whole thing out this way because when you submit it to a publisher, you usually only have to do a chapter. Unless you're just an author and not an author illustrator, and then they usually want you to write the whole thing. So there's like 2 sets of rules depending on who you are. So again, I'll just kind of scroll through this real quick. You can see that it's, you know, you have your effects sounds like kaboom. And you're really breaking it down each page into panels.
Russ, I have a question. When you're working with an agent, are these some of the things that they like to see beforehand also?
Oh, absolutely. They want to see at least my agent, she likes to see each step along the way, just in case maybe the story hits a wall or goes off the rails, which it does happen. Before you get too far, she can like, okay, your story's falling apart here. So you really need to fix this and clean this up, or it's not making sense. So yeah, she's involved every step of the way. And I like that. And she's very honest and open. And if something doesn't work, or even if she thinks the story idea is not sellable, she'll tell me right off the bat.
That's cool.
So again, I just did 1 chapter. And actually, I think this is, as far as the writing part, is the most fun. The outline's the most work and the most important, but this part is when you can really just get into the meat and the dialogue of the story. So even just 1 chapter is, I think 25, maybe more than 25, 30 pages. And then once I kind of get the manuscript, then I go back to my storyboards. Again, I could not find the storyboards for Max. So I'm just going to bring these up when it was a picture book. What I would do is just sketch out each page. I'd do all the panels. I'd put notes underneath, this is what's happening. And then maybe tie in with the dialogue in my manuscript. I may kind of sync things up. Okay, this is page 40, panels 1 through 5. And this is what's happening here, just so my agent can look at it. And it also helps me because sometimes visually, when you're always looking for the page turn, like, oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? So maybe when you write your manuscript, you're not really thinking about page turns, but when you sketch things out, you can see it, and you can actually see errors in your story, and definitely the visual storytelling part.
And Russ, we have a question from Mrs. Jones's classroom. Can you illustrate someone else's story?
Absolutely. Yes, I just did one for AdCare Maine. Is an anti-vaping graphic novel, and it was 130 pages, something like that. And yeah, somebody else wrote the story, and that does happen quite a bit.
Do they send you kind of all of these parts, Russ, and then you go from there?
They'll send me the manuscript. They may send me like a synopsis at first, like, hey, are you interested in working on this? And I'll read the synopsis, and then they'll send me a manuscript.
Cool. And there's another question. How did you get an agent?
Getting an agent is very difficult. It's a lot of trial and error. I'm on my 4th agent. My first 3 didn't work out that well. Think of it as like dating somebody. You just kind of be with them for a while, like, okay, nope, you're not the one. But the one I'm with now is she's wonderful. We get along great. But finding an agent, it's just a matter of you get a story idea and you get some samples, illustration samples, and you just start submitting to agencies and see if there's anybody interested in repping you. I don't know if I really answered the question, but that's kind of how I did it. And also posting things on like Instagram and Facebook. I got my first agent through Facebook. She saw my post and like, hey, I really like your drawing, your art style. Do you have any stories? And I did have one at the time. So I sent everything to her, and then she signed me up. Okay, so after I do my storyboards, I have my manuscript, I still have my outline, I did my interview. Then I start sketching it out. And this is all done digitally. This was done in Clip Studio, which I'll show you in a little bit. So this is where I actually add the dialogue, bubbles, any action words. I keep things fairly loose. But again, I'm always looking like, okay, do I have Max facing forward too many times? Okay, I got to turn his head on this panel, and there's maybe more of an action shot here. And sometimes when I get into these panels, like, oh, okay, I have too much dialogue for this panel, so I'm gonna have to break it up. So I'm editing in this stage as well. And then from there, once my agent looks over everything and she gives me the thumbs up, I do something called color samples. So I actually go in and render a few pages of the book. And we thought this would be great because it's kind of atmospheric, him being underwater in his guppy. Again, this was all done in Clip Studio. I inked and put the color in, also the wording, which I'll show you how to do in a little bit. Any questions on that so far? Are we good?
No, we're good. And the other class is to leave at 11. So we're like, sorry, crunching your time.
All right, I'm just going to show you the pitch pack. So we get everything put together and we do something called a pitch pack. And this is what's sent to publishers. Let me see, can I zoom out? Okay. So I actually kind of designed a cover for it because since Max is an vendor, I thought it'd be great that he has blueprints. So we set this up. On the left side is what my agent writes. She kind of compares things to other graphic novels. And I don't know why that's highlighted. Oh, there we go. And then on the right side is more of the synopsis that I showed you earlier. We put that in. And then we put page samples. And then we'll incorporate some of the color samples as well. And usually you do maybe 10 to 20 page samples, depending on the story. And then we add the character sketches. We did the interview, and then we actually included the outline. And then we also included some of the manuscripts. So this is a sample chapter. And then it ends with some information about me, and then Jenny adds her information. So if a publisher's interested, they will contact her.
Wow, this is amazing how much goes into this, Russ. I mean, I thought there would be, but it's incredible.
Yeah, this was probably a year, just what you've seen here, and the book hasn't sold yet. Okay, here's a few books that I really like that help me with my storytelling and my artwork. Okay, let me scroll down a little bit. There we go. Save the Cat is excellent. How he breaks things down. A lot of screenwriters have used Save the Cat. I was just told about this time last year. Somebody recommended, and I read it like in 2 days, and it was great. It really helped me. Story Genius is another one. It kind of gets into the back, really digs into your brain and where the story is located and helps you pull out more ideas. It makes it more of a solid story. If you love comics and you want to create comics, Understanding Comics is the must-have book. Drawing words and writing pictures is great for comics and graphic novels. And framed ink is really, really good for the visual part. So all 5 of these books are worth checking out at the library. And if you really like it, you know, if you were going to buy 1 or 2, I'd say buy Understanding Comics and probably Save the Cat. I'll give you a little bit of time to write this down. Almost towards the end, and I can show you Clip Studio. All right, we're at the end. Let's check out Clip Studio. All right, give me a moment to bring this up. Oh, it's right there. Okay, I'm just going to delete this or move it out of the way. We'll go back to Clip Studio. So by the way, I do have 2 monitors. I have one, my iMac, and then I have another one. It's called an XP Pen. It's the one I draw on. You can use a Wacom tablet. They go for about $3,000. This XP Pen does just as good a job as the Wacom, and it cost me $500. So I cannot recommend this pen enough, or this tablet. So I actually draw on the screen, almost like it's like a large iPad that's hooked up to my computer. Okay, let me show you around here. Okay, Clip Studio. Let's start new. So Clip Studio has a Clip Studio Paint, which is the basic version, and then Clip Studio EX. I have the EX, which allows you to lay out the whole book in the software. You don't have to import it to Photoshop or InDesign or anything like that. You can do everything right here. So I will show you, see, I will do a comic. Number of pages. Okay, we'll keep it 10. All right. Okay. Oh, let me redo this. I wasn't paying attention to the document size. New. Oh, there we go. We want it. Let's see. 8.5 by. Why is it? Oh, okay. This is what I wanted. Sorry. Wasn't paying attention to my measurements here. There we go. That's good. How many pages? 10. All right. Great. Okay. So I'll just bring this window down. So what happens is it actually just laid out my whole graphic novel or comic book. So these are I have my back cover, my front cover, inside cover, and then some of my pages. And you can actually join these pages together, like inside cover and 3, 4, and 5, 6, and 7, if you don't want that gap between them. So I'm just going to click here, bring up the cover. There we go. One good thing about Clip Studio is that the sub view where you see Max and the cast of characters, you can drop that in there. And it's almost like a reference thing, so you can keep things consistent. You can keep your color consistent. Like I can click over here, and let me grab just a pen tool. I can just sample right off here. I don't have to guess anymore. I'm just clicking. So that way your colors stay consistent. All right, let's see here. So this is really, if you used Photoshop, if you like Photoshop, you're going to love Clip Studio because it's much better. It's more stable. You can buy all kinds of brushes. You can incorporate your Photoshop brushes if you have some favorites. Let's see, there's some of my favorites here. There's the pen tool right there. Oops. Oops. Oh, that's sick. I got click happy here. There we go. There it is. Okay. So grab the black here. So yeah, you can draw right on the screen. You can use a pencil tool. There's my pencil tool right there. You have all kinds of different settings here. Where's my 70 here? There's some of my favorite pencils. Oops.
Russ, did it take you a while to learn like how to draw on a kind of tablet, or, you know, I feel like it's a slightly different thing, like the surface is different. Did you find that, or Did you adjust?
It's a matter of just kind of trying different software that you feel comfortable with. Uh, I was using Photoshop for a while, and then I kind of used a software called Painter, which is really amazing, but Painter has a tendency to just quit on you all the time. Adobe can do that as well, but I've only had Clip Studio quit on me maybe once in like 3 years. And that's because I had like a bunch of other apps open and, and it just didn't have enough RAM. But
No,
if you're curious, if you have an iPad, just play around with like Procreate and some of these other softwares. You can actually get Clip Studio for the iPad. You can also, if you do have a big drawing tablet connected to your computer, you can get a 30-day trial version of Clip Studio. And if you really like it, just keep an eye on like Clip Studio's website and also Amazon. They run specials where they'll sell it for like $30.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. It just takes some getting used to because I was so used to pencil and paper. But when you kind of when you customize your brushes, like your pencil tools and everything, I don't use a lot of different brushes and pencils and inking tools. I have like maybe 2 or 3 that I really like because you can kind of go crazy, especially if you do something like, oh, I really like this piece, and you use 15 different brushes. It's going to be hard to keep track of. All right, if I have to recreate this, okay, I use this brush to do this and this brush to do, okay, with this brush, what did I do for this one? So that's why I just keep it simple. I just, again, 2 or 3 that I really like. Let's see, there's markers. These are digital Copic markers. I'm sure some of the students have used Copic markers. You can play around with layers. So, and then you can kind of multiply things or screen things. I play around with the layers quite a bit. I use multiply, and I also use overlay.
Russ, one of the things, I don't know if this came up in the past, but I often think trying to duplicate the face of a character over and over exactly the same. Do you find that this program is helpful with that, or are you just so practiced at making the face that it just comes easily?
It's a bit of both. The graphic novel I did for the anti-vaping one, I actually had a whole series in the sub view that I have right here. I just have different faces, just different rotations, different viewpoints of the various faces. And sometimes, I'll just sketch them out. And I know James Burks, who does Bird and Squirrel, he's drawn it so many times that he just pulls the heads and stuff from different, like previous books, and reuses them. And he may just flip it or change the expression, or maybe the fur or the hair is doing something different. I kind of do some of those tricks as well. I don't know if I really answered your question.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly, I was just curious about how this could help with that. I find I have a hard time duplicating exactly a face or etc.
I will recommend when you're sketching your characters, draw it in a 3/4 view at first, because then it's easier to do a side view and a front view, because you kind of have it worked out.
Awesome.
Let's see. Okay, so let's say you wanted to do a page. All right, I'll show you this. So this is the frame tool. So I'm just gonna. All right, I already created one big frame. And the cool thing about this is, let's see, I'll just use the pen tool. So if I start inking, it crops it automatically, and I'm actually going over the edges. You can use, which you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to like stop right on the edge here. You can just kind of go off the side. Let's see, it's going to show me. Okay, and another thing, how do you break it up into panels? Nope, that's not it. There it is. Oops. I have to select it. That's what I'm doing wrong. There we go. And there we go. So now, just by using this, you can break it up in all kinds of panels. And it saves you so much time. And again, if I'm inking in this panel, it crops it. And if I'm going to go to this one, you do have to put a sub layer underneath like this. I'll just add some color. But see, we created 4 panels in less than a minute. Because in Photoshop and some of the other software, you actually have to draw each panel. You can actually change the width. Now let's go back up here.
Yeah, this is awesome, Russ. Is this available a free version, or
Pardon me?
is there a free version of this available too? You might have said it.
Yeah, I think you can get a 30-day demo.
That's awesome.
And again, I'm using the EX version, which allows you to lay out the whole book in the software. The Paint version is it's like Photoshop. It's just, you can illustrate, you can create 1 or 2 panels, but you can't create the whole book. Because then from this, I can actually export the book to a printer. And they can just take the files and then create the final book. Let's go to, all right. So you can also change the color here. There's that, still color. You can draw your balloons. Okay. So it's not, there we go.
Wow, that's so easy.
It is so easy. There's your thought balloons. You can change how many dots you want. You can actually draw your own. You can combine balloons. Oops. Oh, let's pay attention. All right, try that. And then you can move the balloon around. You can let me move. Oh. All right, why don't you let me move me around? There we go. Yeah, you can move things around, adjust things like, oh, that's too large. I want to move this one over here. And then as far as type, add your type, highlight it. Then you see this menu over here. You can change the font size, change the font itself. So it saves so much time. Let's see what's good. I'm not going to use Comic Sans because I'm very anti-Comic Sans.
As you should be, Russ, as we all should be.
Oh, I'll just pick one. So, if you wanted to use something like that. So it's really, really simple. It will take you some time to kind of get the hang of it, but when you do, you're like, oh, it saves me so much time. Let's see here. If I save this, and let's go to the, see, I go back to this main one. All my stuff that I did is saved. And then I can go to another page. So that's kind of the quick, easy version. Let me see if I can find something that I actually created in Clip Studio. Did I click on this? Okay. Give me a second here. Are there any questions while I find some of this?
Let me just check. I don't see any in the chat. We did, we were joined by Waterville High School classroom, and I did tell them we're kind of nearing our end, but if they have questions, That's great. I'm also gonna, you know, edit this down and we'll have a recording that we can share.
Okay. Let's see, is this the most recent version? Okay, this might be. Okay, I'll just open this up. Okay. Let's see. Great. I clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry. This is what I want. So you can see all the files. Yeah, I think this is like 600 or 700 megabytes.
Wow.
It's taking a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But again, I've only had Clip Studio crash on me once. And this is the whole graphic novel. This is the anti-vaping one. I'll move some of the windows and close this stuff. Excuse me. All right, let's move this over. There we go. That's the whole graphic novel laid out in Clip Studio. Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink of water here.
Wow, this is so cool to see all laid out like this. I did send a few of the classrooms, I sent them some like panels that they could write on, but this is kind of amazing. You can do it this way.
Yeah, you can see the layers for this one. We'll go back up here. Yeah, this was 6 months of work, which is really fast for a graphic novel. Again, it's usually at least 2 to 3 years. And that's just doing the artwork. I think Dogman, I think Dave, I think he has a new one out every 6 months, but I think he's working on 2 at a time. And they're like 200 plus pages. But he has a couple of people who do all the coloring for him. So he just kind of sketches it in, inks it, and then sends it off. You have people who do that. They're called flatteners. They just block in the basic color for you. And then you can go back in and do more color work on your own, or you can actually hand it off to somebody else who can specialize in the color.
That's so cool. That's a job I did not know existed.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
It's a good way to get in. If you can do flattening,
Mm-hmm.
it'll open the door for you to get more work.
That's very cool. I knew about like people who did that in animation, I think, but I didn't realize that makes sense for graphic novels too.
Yeah, I did everything on this one, all the lettering. And then we added some pages at the end, just some informational stuff. Let's see, I'll bring up another page here. Oh, it's a fun one. You can see you can turn off things. And once I just inked right over my sketches, and then I deleted that layer, my sketch layer. So, any questions about Clip Studio?
Yeah, let's find out if we've got any questions here. None in the Q&A and none in the chat right now, but we'll see if any of the classrooms type in. I'm gonna, Russ, just so I do not forget, I'm gonna put a link in the chat for our feedback form, and the other classrooms that left, I'll send them a link and email.
Okay.
But this is our feedback form, and Zachary, since you were here since the beginning, there's the link to that. It's a Google Docs, but we'd love to have some feedback about our workshops. But yeah, Russ, I don't want to interrupt too much, but I thought to put that there.
I was trying to find some maybe some other digital pieces that that they might like to.
Mhm.
Oh, I'll show this one. So this is just a promo piece I did for myself, kind of like comic graphic novel form, but you can see all the layers that went into this. This was probably maybe 2 days to do this. Let's see if I can turn off things. So one thing I like to do, you notice the color shift when I clicked on that? So I'd like to drop a layer, I'd like a tan layer over my images. And what that does, it kind of desaturates some of the color, and also it pulls everything together. See how it's more unified in its color and tone. That's just something I like to do. Let's see here. Yeah, there's just so many layers here. And again, you can see that this says 62% multiply. So what I did there is that the shadow, I just wanted some of the green underneath come through, so it kind of blends. It's like blending two colors together. Let's see something else that might, like the ray of light coming through the water. That's just 45%. If it was 100%, it would look like this. And it's kind of strong, so I like pulling it back. Plus, I like seeing some of the work underneath it. Now, what's this? Oh, this is a texture. I thought the water looked too flat, so I added a texture to it. Let's see, anything else? I thought that's a good one to show you. Let's see, do I have any?
Yeah, it's amazing how many layers are in that one work.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's see. Don't save. Let's see if I can't find one more for you. And then again, any questions? Don't be shy. Oh, that's another good one. Oh, okay, you might like this one. Again, I just playing around. I wanted to draw a gunslinger, but I thought it'd be kind of funny. His guns were chickens who shoot eggs. No rhyme or reason, but you can see I put a slight tan over top to pull everything together. This one is what? How many layers? This one's probably roughly 16, 17. And let's see, one more. Let's see. I might like this one. Okay, this being. So this is all done in Clip Studio. There's a lot of textures you can see in the background, then on the robot itself. Yeah, there's probably 30 layers to this one. But just even slight things I do, like underneath the gear here, I just added a color and then multiply it. And again, I had my tan layer over top of everything to pull all the colors together. So whoops, too far rest. There you go. You can see the difference without it. It's more moody by adding that tan. And just a glow added. So how are we doing for time?
Yeah, we should wrap up. I think we've got about 5 minutes, so we should wrap up and see if there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions, but this has been awesome, Russ. And also, You know, I knew it would be a lot of work, but I was just seeing like the work that you put into just the outline, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. I did a screenwriting course years ago and was like, wow, this is amazing. And we ended up doing storyboarding for the,
Okay.
for the course. Anyway, it's fun to see it in graphic novels too.
Yeah, so graphic novels basically just a movie on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
That's so
a
cool.
picture book's a lot of work, and then you do a graphic novel, and it's like 10 times the amount of work. So
Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Okay, so I don't see any other questions, so we'll wrap up. And thanks, Russ. This has been great. But thank you so much too for taking your time too. I realize you're now
that's fun.
working full-time teaching. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who attended. Again, that little link in the chat gives you a link to our feedback form. So please fill that in. That would be great. And yeah, thanks, Russ. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was
Sure,
great.
everyone.
All right, bye.